Damn. So it's official. The Boston Celtics have eliminated the Toronto Raptors from the bubble, from the NBA playoffs, and they're going home. They are going home, and let me just genuinely get this out of the way first. I think the better team definitely did end up winning. Even without Gordon Hayward, the Celtics proved that they had a lot of talent on that team. Jason Tatum looked like the budding superstar that he's been advertised as. Jaylen Brown played some phenomenal defense on Pascal Siakam all series, which I will get to more extensively in a second. Then even guys like Daniel Tice really stepped up, and he looked like he was always just full of energy, ready to make big plays for the Celtics defensively and on the glass. He was a big part of this series, and even Marcus Smart. Even Marcus Smart was out there looking like Kyle Lowry light at times, so I gotta give it to the Celtics. They played a phenomenal series, and they absolutely deserve to be going on to the Eastern Conference Finals. So what went wrong for Toronto? Well, I'm going to kick things off with the fact that I think this is one of those series where the impact of the bubble really showed. As I said, I think the Celtics are the more talented team, and I think that ended up showing. That might have been masked a little bit in a series where you're traveling, and in a series where Game 7 is played on the Raptors' home court, where, and you can absolutely at me on this, I think the Raptors have one of the top 3 at worst home court advantages in the NBA. So, having Game 7 at the Scotiabank Arena, formerly ACC, I think that is potentially a game-changing environment. The other part of this, I think, I don't want to say it's self-explanatory, but it's a conversation that has been had all the time, but I'm going to have it at least one more time here because I do think it bears a lot of dividends on the result of the series, and that's the fact that, of course, the Raptors lacked a true superstar going into this, or at least an elite shot creator going into this series. And it really ended up showing, and I think it really ended up hurting the Raptors. Let's get this out of the way. Pascal Siakam had an awful series. Awful.
You're trash.
I said I'd get into it, and Jaylen Brown's defense absolutely locked down Siakam games 1 through 7. Siakam never really had that great game in this series at any point. And for a guy that's been the team's number 1 option all year, he was largely forgettable in this series. And for the Raptors, the fact that they still managed to get to where they were in Game 7 without Pascal playing well shows a lot, but nonetheless, without Pascal showing up, their chances were really, really more poor than they might have already been. Past that, too, if we're talking specifically on Game 7, Kyle Lowry fouling out in the last moments of Game 7 really hurt. And I think that ended up showing when Fred just ended up just throwing up a prayer at the end of the game to try and tie it and just got nothing at all from it. What really bothered me about this too, what I was going to get into, is there was no off-ball movement. There was no help for Fred. It was weird. It was like Nurse said, just screw it, Fred. Go out there, throw up the shot. Let's see what happens. And, I mean, obviously that doesn't sit well with me, but, the man is the coach of the year, so I'm sure that Nick Nurse knew what he was doing, but just... It's not the ideal result that you obviously want, and in a perfect world, Fred is not taking that last shot unless he's open and somebody finds him with good off-ball movement or something. But it was a bad play. It was a horrible play. And speaking of horrible plays, another key one down the stretch was the fact that Jason Tatum was able to go after that rebound and draw the foul after Williams from the Celtics missed 2 free throws. That, to me, would have been a huge difference for the Raptors, is being down 2 versus the fact that they were down 3. I think forced them into a shot that maybe necessarily they weren't as comfortable with, whereas with a 2-point, you have obviously your playbook more open to tying that game or taking that lead, whatever the case may be in that sense. But nonetheless, the Raptors really, I think, beat themselves a lot throughout this series. The thing that really stood out to me all series long, that really bugged me, and it goes in as an extension of the fact that they were lacking a true superstar in this series, or an elite shot creator, as I said. Their shot selection at times was just... I'm gonna say bad and keep it at that, because I could be a whole lot worse here with this statement. But it was not good. It was not good by any means. The Raptors looked like they were just throwing up some really dumb shots at times. There were times where in transition, Fred and Kyle just threw up three-pointers completely contested when they absolutely didn't need to, and they could have used more of the clock. But you know, without like a firm established pecking order, especially because Pascal was playing as bad as he was throughout this entire series, the Raptors' shot selection just suffered the entire series. And I think it was one of the biggest factors as to why the Raptors ended up losing the series in the end. Obviously, the Raptors are a great defensive team, and that kept them in it throughout. But at the end of the day, you know, you didn't have a Kawhi Leonard this time to bail you out with 50 million bounces in the buzzer-beating three to, you know, get you going in this series. And it sucks, but it is what it is. Nonetheless, this is still more or less a successful Raptors season. It just kind of sucks to have it end this way, you know? So where do you go from here if you're the Raptors? Now, I'm not going to get too heavily into this because I feel like I'll eventually end up making its own video. But nonetheless, they do have some really big decisions coming up for this offseason. Obviously, the big one is figuring out what to do with Fred VanVleet as a restricted free agent, how much you end up paying him. I think that's obviously going to be the top priority for the Raptors this offseason. But, you know, speaking of like big player decisions, Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol's contracts both expire this offseason as well, and it's going to be interesting to see what they end up doing with that and which one of them they end up bringing back, because I think with the continued development of Chris Boucher, you want to get him out on the court more, so I don't think you're bringing both back. I think in a perfect world, as much as I love Marc Gasol, you want Serge back, in my opinion, but I do think Gasol might end up being the more affordable option there. So I'm very curious to see where they'll go with the big men. And then obviously the reports came out earlier these playoffs that the Raptors were a front runner for Giannis. So obviously a lot of their choices, all of their choices this offseason are going to end up playing a big role into whether or not, you know, Giannis to the Raptors might actually be a legitimate reality that Raptors fans can hope for. Naturally, whatever happens, and Masai we absolutely trust. So we'll see where we go from here. Raptors fans, it's a tough way to go. It really is. But think about it this way. Most people thought we'd be a 6-10-8 seed. And here we are as a 2 seed getting knocked out by a very talented Celtics team. Doesn't feel like it right now, but this season was a win. Anyways, folks, thanks for tuning in today. Obviously, this was pretty much just a reactionary video to Game 7, so I didn't have as much of my usual layout as I do. Nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed the video. Comment below, let me know what you thought of the Raptors season, where they go from here. Share the video if you can. Obviously, I appreciate it. Like it. You know the drill. Other than that, folks, I am out of here.